I have two different projects from two different timelines. One from 2022 and the other one from I think either earlier this year or late last year. I don't remember. They are years apart, but I think both are really, really, really good productions, both including generative AI use in some form. So I just want to take us to both projects, how I worked on them, and then in the end, you tell me in the comments which one you like most. Is it the old one or the new one? And you tell me why, right? So let's just dive into it. But before then, so the first project that we are going to talk about is a project I call Movie, which is basically me working on an interpretation of how I felt as the music was playing. So it's a song by Tom Misch, which is like one of the songs I like a lot, and it has this introduction which is kind of like a poetry style vibe. So I just decided to take that and create an interpretation of that using AI. At the time, the tool that I was using most was Midjourney, which I still use today. And it was very, at the time, it was still fascinating, but it didn't give you like as much realism and as much creativity as it does today. But I was still able to, do something which I think was like crazy or like creative with it. But it took, a lot of manual work as well. So we're just going to dive in and walk through how I made it. But before then, this is what the project looked like.
My cheek brushes against his, smooth on stubble for a moment, and then it's gone. He walks along the platform as if in a dream. Every fibre in me wants to shout and scream, stop, to run across to him and take him in my arms, to tell him I love you. You silly, silly man, I love you. But instead I stand still, heart cracking. Those little curls on the back of his head bouncing as he steps out of my life. But I'm
too much time on my phone. Baby, do you still sleep alone? Come back to me. Come back to me.
All right, cool. So that was the project. So let's dive right into things. So this is Midjourney open here, and I had to like scroll all the way back because I have like a history of generations from 2023 all the way to 2026, and it's like millions of images, right? So this is what the process looked like for me. Before then, I think we have to go back to Google Docs. So this is what the process looked like. I had to, usually when I'm working on animations, you get a story, you get a script, and then once you have a script, you work on a mood board, and then after your mood board, you get style frames or storyboards, and from storyboards, style frames, and then from style frames, you now move to like your animation. But this process was a bit different because for me, I was just like testing out the tool to see its capabilities and all of that. So what I did was basically write out the lyrics of what the speaker was saying in the film, and then after I write down the lyrics, break down what I'm thinking visually, what I want to be happening on screen, which is me basically storyboarding, but in words, right? Before I go and generate the visuals, because I wasn't going to be like sketching and things, because the main tool I was using was Midjourney. So that's basically what the process looked like. So the gray text here is what the script was saying or what the musician was saying, and then what is in orange is the visual description of what I wanted to create, right? So it says here, my cheek brushes against his, and then the description is like two people rubbing their cheeks together, extreme close-up shots, right? And then he says smooth on stubble for a moment, and then the thing I have here is like zoom out to two butt cheeks rubbing together. So I mean, I was just like thinking aloud. I wanted to do something very funny, something crazy. But at the time, I couldn't generate butt cheeks because, you know, it's against generation policy. So if I was using illustration for this, I would have drawn it myself. But like the goal for this project was to purely do it with an AI tool that at the time wasn't as great as it is today, right? So like just using the restriction of or the confines of that for the project. So it says he walks along the platforms into the dream. Then I have man moonwalking in the Milky Way galaxy with trains passing away from the sun into the stars. So I was just like thinking outside the box of like what descriptions I want. I'll link this document down in the comments so you can just go in there and read like what some of the descriptions I have. So these are the descriptions that literally became the prompts that I had to go to Midjourney to generate the images. And so now we come to Midjourney and we see some of the generations that I started working on. All these are like some other failed experiments. So I think you can see this shot somewhere in the film. So we have like, I think this was the final one that I decided to use for that shot where they were hugging each other. And then for some of the shots also that look like they are time lapse and stuff like that, what I had to do was basically write a prompt, run it multiple times to get like multiple variations of the image, and then stack it together as an image sequence so that it plays like a time lapse of a heart breaking or like something cracking or like some abstract background moving, right? So that was one technique I also used. And the character that was walking in the end, this is the generations, the amount of generations I had to do to get it. And I think this is the final image I ended up using. Yeah, so like there's a whole bunch of images. And I think at the time, OpenAI had an image generation model called DALL-E, which is no more probably what has become GPT image right now. And then I used that for some of the generations as well. So I think for this shot as well, we had this character blowing the whistle. So I generated the character separately, the whistle also separately, and I'll dive into like the PSDs and the After Effects file shortly. And this is like an abstract background that was like, you know, rolling behind the character that was blowing the whistle. So similar process, run the prompt multiple times, and then do an image sequence run at the end to just give me, you know, that animated thing. So that was like one technique that I was using in the past, which is like generate multiple images, play it as an image sequence, and that gives you some dope effects. So real quick, let's dive into the Photoshop file to see some of the work that was done in the background. So like this is, hold on, this is I have the Photoshop here and I have the After Effects here. So this is like the file for the couple hugging. So what I would typically do in those days was I would bring in the image to Photoshop and then I would separate the layers, right? So I would separate the layers into the things I wanted to animate separately. And then I'll just do like some paintings around it. So like manual painting, manual cropping. At the time, Firefly wasn't that strong as well in cropping and all those things. So you had to do that by hand manually. And then I would brush, I'll do some painting, repainting of the thing, cleaning up and all those things. And I'll have separate elements for animation, similar to this scene. So the plan for this scene was to have two things. One, to have the character, the female character, running towards the man, and then have the train also like zoom across the galaxy space, right? So we have this train as separate. So these are the layers that you see on the screen. So we have right hand separate, left hand, left leg, right leg, you know. So I took this into After Effects and animated the character manually, right? And then this is the lady. There's the moon was separate, the moonlight was separate, moon left, moon right, you know. So there's a lot of separation, painting, repainting, clipping, all those things going on in here. And then this another scene where I had like this character separate. I think this is a shot with the mushroom environment, and then we have a lady here, and then a man and a woman, sort of sitting with each other. And then I think this is like my favorite shot in the whole piece. I have a character here, so I had to separate the background as well, separate the body. I did a little bit of extra painting for the lights in the background as well. And then we had the head separate and then the hair separate, because I wanted to have like an animation where he's like a walk cycle of sorts, and then I had to separate it so that I get like the effects of the walk cycle that I wanted to create, right? Yeah, and then this one, the whistleblower scene where we have background separate. So I think I ended up changing the background to like the abstract background that I showed earlier. And then we have the eyes separate, we have the mouth separate, right? And then we have the whistle here, which was sent to that shot in the end to, create the character blowing the whistle. So from after I generated the images, this is where I had to go to next to work on the scenes a little bit to get the assets as separate elements. And then we dive into After Effects, where I completed, everything essentially. So opening scene, pretty straightforward, text animation, some textures, on the background. So there's the texture thing also ran through the whole thing just to give it another layer of depth and complexity, right? So we have that. So we have the text animation come, and then the first shots, as I described, we have two characters with their face rubbing against each other with their eyes open and then their eyes closed. So I think I made one generation of their eyes open, and then I took it to inside Photoshop and then painted the closed one as well. Had them as two separate elements. I think there's a lot of masking and things going on here. So this is the character, the male character. So this is him with the eyes open, eyes closed, eyes. So character off, character on, right? And then animated them manually. Let me show the keyframes here. So some manual animation going on with like eyes open, eyes closed, rub them against each other, and then this scene, background separate from the characters, and then I used puppet pins to just animate the lady leaning on the guy, and then I had these animations or like illustrations of flying saucers in the sky, because the whole art direction for this is supposed to look otherworldly, right? And then I had like these things flying around. So these are like simple items, just position left, position right, stagger them a little bit, and then just let them roll around, right? This like a psychedelic animations of a bunch of mushrooms exploding as well, which was also generated inside, I think this was generated inside DALL-E, and then I made multiple versions of them, and then I just made it into an image sequence that just plays, and then I did some design around it, cropping it on the plain background, and then match cut into the moon scene. And then I had two different moons, one rotating left, one rotating right. We have the man, the train, and then later on we would have the lady, sort of running towards the man in the same scene, right? To tell the story. Then we have this animation of this weird looking lady, which mostly animated using puppet pins. So now object and then puppet pin. So like position up, down, and then you puppet the lips to just move it around a little bit. And then we have the abstract background in the background. So it's the same background that we have. Is this it? The same background with like the multiple images that we generated. and then placed here, and then there's a rotation animation on top of that as well. So you can see over here, if you look at this bounding box, you can see it rotating a little bit even as it flickers around. And then we have a different generation of the character with like an open mouth. So you do a position animation, and then you match cut into the character opening its mouth, and then you put the text on top of that to say the stop. So I'm doing a lot of like manual work over here to like try and make the story make sense. And then in the next shot is the same scene from before, but this time instead of the train, we have the lady running towards the man, and then we match cut again into them hugging. And in this shot as well, there's like a whole bunch of things going on. If I dive into it over here, we can see let me zoom in. We can see that there's a lot of like particle animations going on, creating this feeling of like fire. There's some smoke in the background. There's like red rain falling. The moon is, glowing and rotating and all those things. Yeah, this project is like really, really fun to do, right? And then we have some text animation, a lot of sound design as well. And then we have the illustration of the character blowing the horn, because in the song, there's a certain part of it where like there's somebody blowing a horn, I guess to talk about like a timeout or something. And then so I thought it would be cool to like put something abstract or something random there blowing the horn. Then we have some trim path animations going out of there. And then we have the shots of the mushroom land again with the lady standing by herself, lonely, some trim path animations running around there. And then we have the broken heart in, 3 different parts. Is basically the same set of images, but like arranged differently in those 3 different scenarios, just to give a dramatic effect. They disappear, and then we have the walking scene. And then because I have like separate elements, is this the layer? Yeah, silky hair dude. Because I have like separate elements, I'm able to like have full control over whatever is happening. So you can see the background has a different animation. The character itself, his torso, has a different animation. The head has a different animation. The hair has a different animation. And if you look closely, you can see there's some golden particle animation going on his, his chest area, which was something that I think, one other thing that I'm really proud of. So it's just basic particle animations, and then one part of that is masked out to create, the golden effect that's happening on there. And then, that's the end of that. So this one took a little bit more manual intervention, a little bit more manual work, which was like really fun to make, and like it looked really cool, it looked really unique. And let me know what you think about this particular project, because it was like really fun to make, and I think a few years down the line it still looks like really, really good. So let me know what you think about this. And now we'll dive into the second project, which was relatively easier to make, because from 2023 from 2023 to now, there has been, huge advancements and leaps in the tools that we have today. Why is this thing? It is still loading. Okay, like huge advancement in the tools that we have today. And so let's just dive right into it. So this is a video of that project, basically like a BMW in a museum. Second project I'm going to walk through is basically we have a BMW, some beauty shots of like a BMW, one of my favorite, my favorite car brand, in a showroom, which is a brutalist museum sort of vibe. So that's basically the story. It's like treating the car as an art piece in a museum, right? So that's the concept. And so we're just gonna dive right in. So on my screen here we have like I used Weave for this heavily. I don't think I used any Midjourney in here. So like mostly Weave, using Nano Banana at the time model to just run experiments. So like all these projects are just experiments from like me trying to test the tool, see the limitations and how far I can push them. So Weave AI at the time now is called Figma Weave, which is like a really good tool. They've not sponsored this video, by the way. It's just like a tool I love and a tool I use all the time. So yeah, let's dive right in. This started from a very like weird off place, where I was trying to do some explorations on like character designs and character stylizations and stuff like that. So I had an image of somebody who I was using, and then converted the image into an illustration style. So I have 3 different images over here. So 3 different styles. So this is like a cardboard 3D paper style. And then this is something inspired by something out of like the Spider-Verse movie. And then we have the third style, which is a blend of both. So we have like the 3D, 2D, 2.5D kind of vibe. So I was just exploring styles for the character, and then I decided, you know what, like this is really cool, let me push it a bit further. And then I generated another image of like a much cleaner 3D vibe, right? Which I thought was like cool. I can use this, I can push this forward. And then, you know, sometimes I tend to generate like character sheets from like an image that I created to just see different views of the character, different sides, different, you know, perspectives to see how well the character will hold up, right? So I had this character, and then I decided, you know what, for the cardboard one, let's add outlines. Let's see what that also look like. So this gives me, so I have like a range of styles to go off of right now. So this is me basically doing character building plus art direction, a little bit of that at the same time, in a spirit of exploration. But then I really liked this 3D style. So Weave, the way Weave works, I think I'll do like a walkthrough for Weave. I won't dive into that right now on this video because of time. But yeah, basically Weave works with nodes. It's a node-based creative system where you carry things and plug into things. So 1 + 1 gives you 2, basically, right? So you have prompt, input, image, output, right? Prompt, input, image, output. That's the system that's working on here. So once I had this image, I was like, let me pull an LLM. So you can, this is Google Gemini, as you can see over here. And basically what I'm telling it to do is, I like this image style. So based on this 3D image style, give me a style guide that breaks down the illustration style and converts it into a prompt that allows me to give character descriptions. So that allows me to recreate different multiple characters by me just giving the character description, and then you handle the stylization, right? And so it gives me a style breakdown. So I would link this project in the comments as well, so you can look down there and then just go into it, dive into it, read all the prompts and all the images. Feel free to play around with it. There's something on the battery low. Okay. Okay. All right, cool. So it's still the record. Yeah, the record. Okay. Yeah, so you can dive into that, read it into detail and all those things. So it gives me a breakdown, so I know how the system understands what it's seeing in order for me to get consistency in style and consistency in character if I wanted to, right? And then, so that's like basically the setup. These are some style experiments, like random style experiments from some of the images that I generated already. And then this is just me like playing around with like a few different ideas which never really made the cut. But anyways, that's just by the way. And then from coming up with the style and the direction I wanted, now we go into character development and like now beginning to build out the story, right? So I just basically copied the prompt that the Gemini gave me from the other node and then paste it into another prompt and then give a detailed description of the character that I wanted to create, right? So a high fidelity 3D character render of a young black man wearing a gray long sleeve sweatshirt and large tailored green trousers, blah, 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 right? You can dive into the file again if you have the time. It's linked down there, and then just go through like the detailed of. So all I had to do is to describe my character, the scene, what he's doing, and then plugged it for good measure. Sometimes the style description gives something that it thinks is similar to what you want, but to get proper control and lock it in, sometimes I plug in my reference image as well, which is something I generated myself, so that it knows that, okay, even though we are describing this particular 3D style, also add the image as reference to reinforce, to tell the system that, oh, okay, this is for sure the 3D style that we are going with, right? So I did that and changed the character description a few times, and it gave me like a few different characters. So if I go into the grid view here, we can see characters. So we have a child version, and then we have the adults version, right? So I had like 4 different versions that I generated, and then from all the generations I was like, this one is like really dope, it's the best one. So that's the one that I went with, right? Let's go back to, yeah, so that's the one that I went with. So now what I'll typically do next after generating the character is, again, give me a character sheet so that I know what I'm working with, right? If I needed to prompt it in a different pose or in a doing a different action or whatever, I know what it looks like on paper before I now go into like doing other videos and all those other things. So we have the prompt here that I use is, where is it? I think that prompt is lost, but basically it's just plain English, like give me a character sheet of different poses, different angles of the character, right? And it gives you something like this, right? Where you can see that, okay, now it has a fair idea of what the character looks like. If I'm to generate like a side view, a front view, a back view of what my character looks like and what it can do. And then the next one was, okay, now we have the character, let's expand the world, right? So I have a character sitting by his car, which is the BMW we are talking about, inside a museum, right? But what's happening is the museum that he gave me, I didn't really like it. It wasn't really the vibe I was going for. So I had to change around the language a little bit until it gave me something that I wanted. Also, the car that I wanted wasn't this particular type of BMW. I wanted something much older, right? So I had to like tweak the prompt around a little bit. So this is the current prompt that I have, I think. So this prompt changed a little bit over the time, so you won't get the original prompt that I started using. And again, we have like consistency in like the 3D style, we have the consistency in the character, right? And then from here, I was like, okay, this is a good base to now start working with, right? So what I now did was to add some lighting in the scene, because I really liked the scene, but I felt it was too flat. So I wanted overhead lights, some practical lights brighter on the wall. So you can see these lights, these exhibition style lights now shining lights on the wall, giving, you know, when you go into a gallery, the lights on the wall over there. And then we have some overhead lights, probably from like an open hole or something up in the ceiling, shining down the character. And then let's turn on the lights. But then also I prefer white rims to black rims because, you know, why not? And then I got some versions over here. This has much warmer lights. This has a bit brighter lighting setup, right? And then from there, I'm like, okay, now we have our scene setup. We have the vibe. We have the museum that I want. We have dope lighting. So we can go ahead. And then I did another thing where I was curious. So let's extract the, what's it called? Let's give me a style description or an image description of this image. And I wanted to regenerate it without the image reference to see what it was going to give me, right? So looking at this, we have the consistency in the style, the consistency in the vibe and everything. But then it changed the character. And I think the car is pretty much the same. But then it changed the character and it changed the setup and the layout of the museum as well. So at this point, I know I have like style consistency with whatever I'm doing. But in order to get the character consistency and the consistency in the elements as well, I have to link those things as reference images in here, right? But then I liked like some of the arts and stuff inside here. So what I now did was I treated this space as a different part of the museum that was going to be showed later on. And this is the image I have from that. So now what I'm doing is like, okay, let's connect the space. So when you look at the original image, you can see there's a huge block in this middle here, and it looks like there's something behind there, right? So it only made logical sense to me that once I extracted this scene from the other scene, which also has like a huge block in the middle here, this will make sense as what is behind that block in the other shot, right? So I'm building out my scene, I'm building out my shots over here. And the other thing I decided to do was, okay, like now I need to see the back of the car peeking behind that huge wall, which we have over here, right? Because in telling the story, it's like the car is the focus, but the environment in which the car exists was also quite important to develop, right? So we did that, and then there's a magic prompt that I found online that I think that's awesome when you are developing things like this, which is basically generate a 3x3 grid of different shots angles of this image with a mixture of shots from, then you insert the camera angles that you want. So I wanted some from above, some from the sides, some from close up, and then different angles just to reveal different details in the museum, right? And then this is the image I got, which is like really cool. So now in building my shot list, I can have shots of like tracking shots of, you know, going sideways from here, going from up to down, going from left to right, you know. So in my video generation as well, I can easily use start and end frames to get like camera movements that would be very difficult to prompt, you know, directly inside your AI tool. And then what I now do is like I come here, look at the frame I want, so the 8th frame, so extract the 8th frame and then upscale, right? And I did that for a bunch of the shots here. So extract the first frame and upscale, extract the second frame and upscale. And now these are like the videos or the images or the assets that I was going to use to now start generating my video, because I think when you're generating video, you need a good image base or good assets setup, and then you can now go into video. And the model I'm using here, mostly Nano Banana Pro, like it's just Nano Banana Pro and then prompts, Nano Banana Pro and prompts inside the Weave. And then now we come to now the meat of the thing where we began to like explore, okay, so similar prompts where I got the 3x3 grid, but for the guy in the museum. So I wanted basically close-up shots of the car, close-up shots of him interacting with the car, and then wide angle shots from different angles showing him interacting with the car as well as an art piece inside the museum. So that's for that. Now these ones are just me trying to experiment to see, okay, if I exaggerate parts of the car, what would that look like? Which I thought was a cool idea to just go off a tangent and try a few other things. But it wasn't, it didn't really fit what I was looking for, even though like I thought they looked cool. Yeah. And then at this point, so you can see in the previous image, I was extracting these things one by one manually. But then I found this thing inside Weave, which is really cool, which is called a text iterator, which is you can plug in the text iterator into another node, write multiple prompts, and get out multiple images in the end, which is like really cool. So what I did was, after getting my 3x3 grid of the guy with his car, all I did was plug that into another Nano Banana mode, which is here, extracted frames, and then with my text iterator, go with like extract and upscale frame 5, frame 6, frame 7, frame 8, and then run that once, and then that gives me all the different angles that I need now to go ahead and work with in here, right? Sometimes it messes up, it creates things that you didn't ask for, like this pose over here, I didn't ask for this. But other times too, it gives you like, you know, some of the things that you will need. That's the thing with AI, you will not always get exactly what you want all the time. The camera go off, I think.
Yeah, you record.
In the record,
Just put it on you.
the monitor will go. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, that was the next step that I had to do. And then I started working on the videos. But then after, so yeah, basically the videos, where are the, yeah, so I brought the images over to this section, and then now I started working on the video. So the video model I was using at the time was like Kling 2.6 Pro, which I found does really well with like understanding the prompts, what you want, and especially camera movements, which was a big thing in this film, because most of the shots are like slow moving tracking shots, and there's slow movement in the thing. It's nothing giddy giddy you bop. So that was the model. I tried a few models from VO to, I think it was VO. I tried Cdance 1 point something at the time, and I tried Kling 2.6, and I found like Kling 2.6 was the best, right? So over here is like basic filmmaking language, right? So slow camera rotation anti-clockwise as the character gets up from the car and then turns around, passes his hand on the blah, 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 blah. So I'm basically describing what is happening in the scene. So if I play back, like this is the character getting up, and I think the video is buffering. But yeah, you get the idea. So that particular shot of him getting up, camera rotating, and then from the above, right? And then here, so what I was doing was I gave the same description of what the character is supposed to do, but what was changing was different camera angles and different camera movements. So that when I go in post, I can now do match cuts where it's like, if he gets up and he's going to touch the car, in the next shot is a different angle, but he's still getting up and going to touch the car. So it's like me shooting a film in real life, but letting the character act the thing multiple times and me shooting it from different angles. So when I go to cut in the editing bench, I have multiple, you know, footages to now cut and match different camera angles from. So that's basically the technique I'm using in this film over here. And then, you know, everything looked cool, but then I was like, it's going to be a short video if he just gets up, multiple camera angles, touches the car, yeah, it's nice and all that. But I wanted to expand the world a little bit more. And so I was like, what would an exterior of this brutalist museum look like? And what would other places in the museum look like, right? So I then went back, took my image, used it as a base, and then explored different building styles. And then this is the one that I ended up choosing, right? For continuity purposes, because I felt like over here, there's a glass, whatever over here, and then it looks like the way the lighting is entering the building and all those things. This looks like something that makes sense as what the museum would be. And it looked very clean. It looked very peaceful. And then there was another car, placed outside for good measure. This was the other one, I think. Yeah, this was the other one that I got. I didn't really like how the environment looked. It looked too brutalist and less peaceful for me. And then this was something that I was playing with. I was like, what if we had like a statue of the engine outside and then a statue of a heart, like connecting both two things, because the engine is essentially the heart of the car, right? And that I didn't really like this as well. So I just went with the first option that I got here. And what I did next was, okay, I would want to introduce the museum first before we get to the car, right? So like leading shots up to that particular shot. So give me images of like other spaces inside the museum that we can look at first before we get to the car as like an introductory thing into the story, right? So I generated interiors and making sure we had like some continuity with how the windows looked and how the light was entering, and like you can see the car outside and all of that, right? So I had like multiple generations here, which you would see later. You'd see in the film as well, part of the museum with like an artwork or a sketch of some of the current BMWs and how the nose looks in there as well. And then the rest is just, going from image to video, image to video, image to video, right? So for this particular shot, the opening shot of the museum, I used a start and end frame. Basically what that means is once I had an image of the museum that I liked, I also generated different camera angles of the museum. So this is me basically blending the process of art direction, storytelling, storyboarding, and producing the video all in like one shot. It's not like a linear process at this point. It's me going back and forth based on the story that I'm trying to tell. So I have an image of like a different camera angle with a bit of distortion and all that of this shot, so I can do a start and end frame from going from this angle now coming back to the wider angle shot, which I thought looked really cool. So with this in the editing process too, what I can also do is that do the reverse, so I can place a shot where the camera is coming out and the camera is also going in, right? So I think I did a bit of that also. And then we have some videos of like different parts of the museum which I generated in there as well. Looks really cool. Again, the file will be linked down there so you can go. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the video, so you can dive in there, look at all the prompts, read them for yourself, and just dig into the file. But I mean, the basic principle here that I'm trying to communicate with the video is like, this is an example of how I think I'm using AI as a tool to help me bring out the creative vision that I have, right? And for both projects, I'm pretty much in the driver's seat, trying to get out the story that the actual story that I want to be telling, right? And these are like some more examples of other shots that I generated. But in essence, the basic filmmaking principle or the basic storytelling principles did not change, because in the first example, we had the story, we had the idea, we broke that down into image frames, which typically I'll draw as storyboards. And then from there, we went to generate the images, brought the images back into Photoshop, worked on the images, and then sent it to After Effects to animate them. In this one, similar thing, we have a story, we have a basic idea, markets the car as an art piece in a museum, right? Then, so just that this one is a bit more visual in the exploratory phases, because you are getting back images instead of sketching, right? But that's basically me doing my storyboard, my style frames, figuring out what the story is, building my shot lists, getting the shots and animating the shots, getting my camera angles and camera movements right, making sure there's continuity with the space as well, so that everything feels connected and everything feels like, okay, all of this came from the same place, all of this came from the same shots, all of this came from the same image, and it's telling a unified story. So I mean, all these things are like extra shots and like other videos that were generated. And then basically from here we go into the editing bench, which is After Effects. I use After Effects to edit videos, by the way. I don't like Premiere Pro for some reason. And then just editing it, adding sound effects, adding music. So when you look at the project carefully and you listen carefully, there are like a lot of subtle things that are happening. Like when it gets up from the car, the squeaky noise the car makes at the ending shots where the camera is panning out, it sounds like it's by the roadside and there are other cars speeding by, you know, just like all those other things to increase the storytelling ability of whatever that it is that you're putting out. So yeah, those are like some two projects, one from 2022 or 2023 and the other from just recently, to see how far the tools have come, but then the principles I'm using are still the same, which is something I think is like the most important thing for me, because tomorrow another tool might come by and if you get locked into one tool, you never know. If you don't have your principles, your basic language, your basic ideas on lock, it might be difficult to get like industry grade or like high quality results with whatever production it is that you are doing or whatever you want to use AI. AI is great, but I wouldn't advise that you outsource or automate every single thing, because that would be the difference between your uniqueness, your unique voice, and someone else who is just, you know, writing prompts or stealing other people's prompts or like doing whatever that is. So yeah, that will be it for today. Let me know what you guys think. Which project is your favorite? Which workflow was your favorite? And I'll drop the links to the assets in the comments below so you can download them and check it out for yourself. And let me know if you have any questions, any comments. Leave that out there. I'll be hanging out in the comments and checking that out as well. So catch you in the next one.